All right, guys, we've done it. We've arrived. I'm officially a real deal YouTuber. We got the dedicated space. We got the red and the blue lights. How much more legit can you get? I don't think there is a way.
In fact, I was too legit. I was too legit to quit.
Thank you guys so much for all your support, because it's only because of you is why we've got here. So thank you again. But you all clicked this video for a reason, and that's because you're interested in the Gacha revenue, the Sensor Tower report, because you want to know what's been going on with all the games that you love to play, or you love to flex about because you're a whale in this situation. Let's go in and take a look. There's a couple things that I want to point out to you that I was surprised by this monthly report, and let's talk about it. All right, guys, we're taking a look here, and I know you're probably already staring at the top three, and we can see we've got Honkai Star Rail, Ume Musume, Pretty Derby, and Genshin Impact, which I think is a big surprise. I think most people still consider Genshin Impact to be the #1 gacha game in circulation right now, but that's been slowly on the decline. No, I'm not trying to hint that the game is going to die anytime soon. It is far from that, but it hasn't been in the top slot for quite a while now, which is a little bit surprising. And I think it's really starting to show the merits of Honkai Star Rail itself in terms of overall gameplay and experience. I think a lot of people who were kind of turned off and a little bit jaded from what happened with Genshin Impact have really solidified their play in Honkai Star Rail. And that's really interesting to note. I think it's especially surprising based on some of the banners that have come through on both games. So Genshin Impact over the past month did have a Nervalette and Hu Tao banner. I think a lot of people were expecting that with Nervalette, a fairly sought after character to come through, that there was going to be a little bit more revenue coming in from his banner. Now, granted, it wasn't the whole month of Nervalette's banner, as it is still ongoing. However, it's still a little bit surprising. I think a lot of people were expecting more. They did get a little bit of a bump, going up from 32 million to 36 million, but that's still not quite the increase I think people were expecting. Honkai Star Rail, on the other hand, we do actually see a pretty significant drop, going from 49 million from August into 40 million into September. Now, I think that's kind of to be expected. If you forgot, August is when we had the Kafka and Blade banners, which were huge banners for Honkai Star Rail, as they were two very sought after characters. Kafka is just probably one of the best waifus in the whole game. I think she's a fantastic character. I pulled on her myself. I think she is awesome. As well as Blade is just the edgelord that everybody wants because they can fix him. And I just think they were both insanely popular characters. So the amount of revenue that we can see in August, I don't think is symbolic of like the general trend we're going to see with Honkai Star Rail. So seeing a bit of a dip going down from 49 million to 40 million, I think is to be expected based on the switch from that to Fushuan and Imbibitor Lune, who, well, Imbibitor Lune was an imaginary hyper carry, which was very exciting for a lot of people. There was a lot of people still kind of more interested in skipping him because of other future characters coming down the line. Fushuan was another preservation character that was dropped, well, very interesting for people, and a lot of people still pulled on, clearly based on the amount of revenue that we're seeing coming from that. It still didn't quite have the same degree of hype that Kafka and Blade had, which I think is to be expected. I think part of the thing that hurt their revenue as well is Hoyoverse loves to drip feed their marketing material, and they were already teasing Topaz and Jingliu at that time over the course of the month of September. So I'm not surprised that more people were considering skipping Imbibitor Lune and Fushuan for those future characters. But again, guys, it's still 40 million revenue in a single month, and that's not even all of the revenue. Like, it's insane. Insane levels of revenue there. If you don't know Uma Musume Pretty Derby, that it's like an anime waifu horse racing game, huge in Japan, not really big in the West, and that's why probably some of you watching this video have never even heard of the game itself. I've never personally played it. I've only heard a little bit about it online. That's pretty much the extent of my knowledge. Nikke, an insane jump, and I can tell you why. Nikke jumped from 19 million in a single month to 31 million in the month of September, and it was because it had a Nier collab. In case you missed it, there was a really big Nier collab where they added A2, 2B, and Pascal all into the game. Pascal was kind of free, not really a big deal, but 2B and A2 were added to the game, and there was a ton of people coming into the game to try for the first time so that they could get A2 and 2B added into their teams. So I'm not entirely surprised based on those numbers because people have been saving for a long time for this since they teased this like months ago. Around their kind of like mid-year announcements, they were teasing the Nier collab. And so people coming in and spending money during that time that it was coming through, completely expected. So I'm not surprised. I mean, personally, I love to see it. I understand the game's not for everybody, but that's just like a hobby game for me that I have a lot of fun with. So to see that it's like thriving, doing well, the Nier collab did well is fantastic. I think the fact as well too that it's a very niche gacha game, I would say, and it's got revenue that's, you know, rivaling Genshin Impact's, which is like super mainline gacha game. I think it's pretty great. Good job, DK. I respect that. I'm very happy for you. Faco did drop a little bit, where they dropped down in a, sorry, not a little bit. Faco had a pretty significant fall off from 53 million to 21 million. And that's pretty big. I'm not entirely sure why that took place, but that's a pretty significant drop. That's kind of the top 5 on the list there. As you can see here, there were some other pretty significant swings, just some to note. Fate Grand Order Global did manage to almost double its revenue from one month to the next, well, although it did drop significantly in Japan. Blue Archive had a huge fall off from 18 million down to 7 million. I am not entirely sure why that may be. I wonder if there's some general demographic crossover between some of these games, and we're not necessarily seeing the money leave the market, but more so shifting to others. Let me know in the comments down below where you think some of these drops have left from and where they went to, because 18 to 7 million, that's huge. That is a massive drop. Arknight's still trucking along strong, 5 million bumping up to 7, which is great, but we also did see the new game Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis added in. So this is the first month that we're seeing it, coming in with a pretty strong month of 7 million. Honestly, still less than I would have expected based on some of the hype I've seen around the game, but I also don't know if it was like pushed that hard to the general public. Like, I've only seen a couple people even covering content for this game, one of them being Clint Wolf. He's been dropping a lot of content on Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis, so I don't know. I would have expected a little bit bigger, especially considering that even like a decent month before on Nikke was 19 million. So I don't know, you would think a bigger IP like that would carry a little more weight, but it didn't happen to. So very interesting stuff there. Some other ones to note: Epic 7 still trucking along at its consistent 5 million. Azure Lane having a pretty big jump from 1.8 to 4 million. My guess is, in case you missed it, there was some big controversy coming out around Azure Lane as there was a skin that was released for a particular character that was just like absurd in my opinion. The physics of the whole thing just doesn't make sense. And so it got a lot of press around it. So I'm not surprised that maybe a lot of people came in and tried the game, you know, for the first time. Maybe they came in and bought the skin because it was really interesting. But that's my speculation as to why I think there was a pretty big jump in revenue. Let me know if you think there's some more details I missed down below. Okay, but I think we're going to jump to what I think a lot of people are expecting to talk about today, and that is going to be Aether Gazer and Punishing Gray Raven. Aether Gazer because it's still a fairly direct competitor to Punishing Gray Raven that a lot of people have been trying out, but then also Punishing Gray Raven because that's what we talk about here, baby. That's what we cover on the channel. First thing, Aether Gazer seems to be pretty steady at the 700,000. Punishing Gray Raven is split between both Japan and global on this report, so we can take a look at the Punishing Gray Raven on the Japanese side. We can see has jumped up to 700,000 from 400,000, and Punishing Gray Raven went from 400,000 to 500,000. Now, on a macro scale, not anything to write home about in terms of being good or bad. Honestly, it still seems to be trending in the same way that it was previously. If you saw my previous Sensor Tower report, Punishing Gray Raven seems to generally swing on both servers anywhere between 300 to kind of like $700,000 a month, which is nothing compared to the top 5, the big numbers that they're pulling in, the multi-tens of millions. But from a general health standpoint, it's been consistently doing that for months at a time. So it seems to be pretty good. You may be watching this and actually going, wait, what? That's it? Only a small bump on the global side of $100,000, but Bianca Stigmata just released. Yes, But I do want to note something. First thing I want to note is that Bianca Stigmata's release is not going to impact the Japanese server, because the Japanese server is not a full year ahead, but it is about half a year ahead in terms of release cycle. It released back in December of 2020, and The Punishing Gray Raven released in July of 2021. So about a 6-month, half a year difference there. So the bump that we're seeing there on the Japanese side is not because of Bianca Stigmata. On the global side, I think we can account some of that being attributed to Bianca Stigmata, but Bianca only dropped on September 26th, on the last few days of the month. Now, normally that is where you're going to see a larger influx of spending when the banner releases, but that doesn't account for a whole month of spending. And I don't know. I'm a little more interested to see what actually pulls through on the October report to really solidify if actually Bianca has not had a significant bump on the spending for the game, or maybe that it does have a massive spike. I don't know. I think October is going to be the true measure for that because, again, Bianca Stigmata was only the last 3-4 days. So I don't know. Again, from an overall health standpoint, good, steady trend lines. It's been running along very well, but I still think a little surprising. I think people expected a little bit more of a bump. Bianca Stigmata is a very highly sought after and very hyped character for the game. But that's kind of like my thoughts on the PGR side. Some other final notes just to end off this video here. Tower of Fantasy had a pretty massive drop of 500,000, although it is still making more than PGR, so think of that what you will. Snowbreak Containment Zone fell off a frickin' cliff, going from 1.2 million down to 300,000 on the global side. That's pretty crazy. And I do want to note a little bit of the bottom of the chart, guys, because I think we've got some end of service on the horizon. Hegan Aruthil, which is a game that I covered really briefly early on this channel where we were doing some streaming when the game initially released, it has officially dropped down to $26,000 in revenue on the global side. God, look, I'm making some conjecture here, but based on infrastructure costs itself, maintenance costs, paying devs to work on the game for maintenance purposes and new releases, ain't no way that's coming remotely close to covering their expenses there. So I don't know if that does not pick up in the next 2 months, maybe, if there's not anything significant that happens, I think Hegan Aruthil's, I think it's dead. I think it's gone, guys. I think it's going to be end of service. So thanks for coming, Hegan. I'm glad I didn't stay too long because neither did you. But that's going to be it, guys. That's it for covering the Sensor Tower report. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. What other games did you notice on this list that I didn't talk about that you thought was really interesting? What do you think about my take on the Punishing Gray Raven side? Do you think I'm a little bit accurate, a little bit off? I'd love to know your thoughts about that in the comments down below. If you made it this far in the video, you rock. I greatly appreciate you. I've got some social medias and some other areas to connect in the description box for this video. I've got a Discord. You can come chat and hang out. I'd like to pop in there and talk with people, as well as I've got an Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter, guys. We've been pushing content out on those now, so I'd love for you to come and follow me over there. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.